Hello, my name's Hayden Schmidt. I'm an instructional technology specialist with Alvin Independent School District, and today I wanted to do a brief introduction to Minecraft Education Edition, covering the installation of Minecraft and a brief look at the tutorial world and how to launch the tutorial world and take your first steps in exploring Minecraft. This is not intended to be a comprehensive introduction, but just the basics on getting you installed and logged in and learning how to move around in the world and explore the setting. So let's start by taking a look at the Software Center. I'm going to move the Software Center icon to the middle of my screen here. The Software Center I'm going to open up, and it is a location that you can find all the applications that are pre-approved by the school district for installation on your computer without an administrative username or password. So anything that you find in here you can install and use, and you will not have to have your technician assist you. One of those options, of course, is Minecraft Education Edition, so I'm going to click that. It'll take us back to the screen that you saw open when I first opened Software Center. And by clicking on the Install button, it will begin the installation process. Now, the installation of Minecraft takes a little while because it needs to download and it needs to configure some settings before we're able to run the software. So I'm going to wait for it to complete that process, and I'm also going to clip out the amount of time that it takes to do that from our video. So we'll get a little gap in the video here, and I'll come back when the installation is complete. All right, and as the installation completes, you'll notice that you now have an install button that has changed to an uninstall button, and that you have a Minecraft Education Edition icon somewhere on your desktop that will give you the ability to launch the software now that it's been installed. And so we're going to do that. I'm going to close down my Software Center now that the installation is completed. And I'm going to go ahead and move my icon back over here to the side since I'm finished letting you see what that looks like. I'll pull the Minecraft Education Edition icon out there to the center, and you can see it looks like some sort of construction block or maybe a square bookshelf with little books in it. I can't tell exactly what those are supposed to be. But if I double click on Minecraft Education Edition in order to launch it, it's going to take a few minutes to give me my first startup. And Minecraft will frequently, the very first time, launch in a smaller window. You can expand that out to full screen, as you're seeing represented here on my desktop. The first time launch gives you the load buttons for a minute that are those little charts that are rising and falling. And then quickly enough, you're brought here to the sign-in screen. A sign-in is going to be required every time you or your students log into Minecraft Education Edition. And I have, just so that you are aware, set my screen recorder not to record computer sounds, because Minecraft plays a very kind of subtle background music that slowly rises and builds and gets louder. You may be able to hear it a little bit through the microphone background as we're recording today, but when it's recorded through the screen recorder, it's just unbearable. So I had to make some changes to my recording, and I'm going to go ahead and turn it down on my computer speakers so that it doesn't step on my toes too much and you can still hear what I'm going to say. I want to share with you that the district purchases for us a Microsoft 365 account that is active for all teachers and all students, and Microsoft 365 includes licensing for Minecraft Education Edition. But for teacher purposes, it also includes access to all of the Microsoft apps That is Office, Word, PowerPoint, Excel, and a number of other Microsoft software applications that are available through Office 365. Our login for both Minecraft and Office 365 are the same. And that is your username. So for me, it is H. Schmidt. And then the suffix is at alvinisd.onmicrosoft.com. So it's a relatively long login. I'm going to leave it up there so you can take a look at it for a second if you want to make a note. Obviously, for students, that's going to be student ID number at alvinisd.onmicrosoft.com. And I know that for some of our younger students, that may be a challenge to type in that much information correctly without making a mistake. This is a great opportunity for them to practice. Or if you want to make it a little easier on them, you can provide index cards that include their login ID. The password, which I access by hitting next, is the same password that you use to log in every place else. And so for students, that's generally going to be first initial, last initial year of birth. For students above 4th grade, I believe we have added 2 random digits to their first initial, last initial year of birth, but those should be available through your librarian if you do not have a list of what every student's login ID is. I'm going to go ahead and click sign in. And it's going to sign me in. And I'm going to know the sign in has been successful because I have a character over here that has my name, Hayden S., floating over it. If you want to change, it'll assign you a character, what is called a skin in Minecraft. And if you want to change your skin, you can click on the coat hanger and you can pick another character that you would prefer to have represent you in the game world. I'm going to stick with the one that I've got. The little back arrow that is tiny and not very conspicuous here is how we move back to our previous screens in Minecraft. You'll get used to that after you've done that for a little while. There are options to play, to adjust settings, to access a library of worlds, or to access educator resources. Educator resources, I believe, will take you to the website that I have produced a separate video walking you through, and so I'm not going to spend much time on educator resources. The library will take you to a listing of worlds that is similar to the search for worlds or search for lessons section that also exists in that previous video. So I'm again not going to rely much on the library here. Settings we're going to take a look at a little more closely after we are actually in a world. And so for the sake of brevity and actually making some progress for you today, I want to take a look first at play, and specifically at play in the tutorial world. So I'm going to click on play. And here you can see that I already have a Minecraft tutorial set up. I'm going to delete that world by accessing the pencil and saying delete world so that you can see what it's going to look like when you actually come in for the very first time. You should see a blank window just like this, and it's going to give you an option to create new. And when you click create new, it's going to give you some new world templates that you can create from. Blocks of grass is just a plain flat world that students can use to create any kind of representation, any model, construct any artwork or any sculpture without having to worry about mountains and trees and water features and those kind of things. The Minecraft tutorial is where we're going to focus today, but very briefly I do want to show you some of the others. There's a chemistry tutorial, a Voyage Aquatic. The Inspiration Hub has a number of simple lessons built into it. The Code Builder tutorial shows you how to teach students the basics of computer programming with block programming languages in a Minecraft setting that they are already familiar with. And See More Templates will take you to a library of world templates that you can download and use as you see fit in the classroom and design lessons around if you have the desire to do so. For the time being, we're going to focus on the Minecraft tutorial, as I mentioned earlier, so I'm going to click on the tutorial world. It says initiating world template, and then will take me to game settings for that world. So it's showing me that I'm creating from a template, and it shows me game settings. And I'm going to run down these settings real quick just to give you a brief look at what each of them are, because they will help you determine some of the characteristics of the world that you're playing in. I'm not going to change any of these settings as we head for the tutorial world, because these settings are set appropriately for the tutorial. But I still want to give you a walkthrough and show you what your options would be if you go to create a new world that is just blank, or if you want to modify some of the settings in a world that you download for use with your students. So this world defaults to survival, which means that I have to worry about getting hurt. I can be injured. I can fall off high places. I can drown in deep water. I can burn myself up if I fall into a volcano. There is also a creative and an adventure world. The creative world eliminates those player damage elements. It eliminates the need to care for yourself or feed yourself, and it eliminates the need for you to actually mine and craft, as is evident from the game, Minecraft. Creative mode gives you all the blocks at the beginning, so you can create anything that is possible to create in the world from scratch without having to collect the resources necessary to do that and combine those resources in a way that would allow you to actually create the blocks, as you would need to do in a survival or an adventure world. The survival world is just that. It is purely survival. The adventure world actually has a little bit of a script with goals for a student or for you to accomplish. Typically, as teachers, we will spend more time in a creative world. If we are looking to teach specific elements of economy and that kind of thing, we may want to dip into survival worlds from time to time. And for tutorial purposes, because it's trying to show you the breadth and depth of the game, I'm going to leave it set to survival. The difficulty is peaceful to hard. Peaceful means you are least likely to be attacked by random creatures at night, and hard means you are more likely to be attacked by random creatures at night. And so that's just the difficulty setting for a survival world. World type is set to infinite. The seed numbers each represent variables for different aspects of the world, things like how frequently is there a canyon, how much water is there, how hilly, how many mountains, how often does the terrain change, how many trees. None of those things are going to matter to us 90% of the time. If you have a specific interest in creating a world that is all lakes or that is all swamp, you can do a Google search for Minecraft seed swamp or Minecraft seed mountainous, and you will get some number codes that you could put into this seed box in order to generate a world that was all mountains or all desert or all water if you had an interest in doing that. The simulation distance has to do with how far Minecraft will generate the terrain from the location that the player is viewing. So it just creates the world around you, and this determines how far around you the world is pre-created. World options with regard to coordinates and immediate respawn default to off, and so I'm going to leave them off. But I usually turn coordinates on because it introduces students to an XYZ kind of coordinate grid that they're going to be using for most of the rest of their student career and in math and for graphing and those kind of things. I find this is a great place to introduce those XYZ coordinates. Cheats needs to be left on. Now, it's not that we're actually going to be cheating per se in the game, but because we as teachers are going to want to be able to use powers like teleporting students from place to place and giving students rewards, or depriving students of the ability to construct things if they're tearing things up. We do want to leave cheats on because those are actually going to be codes that we're going to use in order to manipulate the game world. The code builder is the programming piece that I mentioned earlier. The code builder gives you control of what is called an agent in the world, and your agent can be programmed using block programming languages. Your agent can then do things like build a house of a certain size out of a certain material, or gather wood, or gather wool, or gather chicken eggs, or gather ducks, right? So you can program that agent to go out into the world and do things for you. I generally turn the code builder off for most student settings because the C key is the button that is used to activate the code builder. Students will accidentally press C when they do not mean to, and they do not need an agent, and then they will have that agent in the world with them, and he can be a little clumsy to get rid of. He can be a little confusing and distracting, and you just don't want that for students unless that's a specific part of your lesson. If you're going to use the agent to teach block programming, then certainly leave it turned on. It must be on in order to do that. But generally, I will turn the code builder off. Again, I'm going to leave it on today because the world is set up for the tutorial, and part of the tutorial, I believe, involves the code builder. Always day is a setting that you should generally leave on for classroom settings. Minecraft has a 20-minute day-night cycle, and so if you leave always day on, students will be able to work consistently for the full amount of time they have in class, instead of experiencing 20 minutes of daylight and then having to wait for it to be nighttime for 20 minutes where it's dark and they can't see and spiders come out of the woods and try to attack them. Those are just all complicating issues that you don't need to have in a classroom where you're asking students to generate demonstrations of knowledge, and time is at a value. So I always leave always day on for classroom use. Now I'm going to come down to the very bottom here and throw the switch for show classroom settings, and that's going to add just a few things that are particularly useful in a classroom. The first one is perfect weather, because just like there's a day-night cycle that will interrupt students' ability to work, there are weather cycles in Minecraft, and unless you're teaching weather, you don't want your students to be slowed down or stopped because a storm blows through, or it gets lightning, or the skies get dark and it starts raining and they can't see very far to gather resources. You really want to leave perfect weather on in most settings, especially where your primary goal is just to allow students to work on a project or create demonstrations of knowledge. The next one, allow mobs. Mobs in Minecraft is short for mobiles, and mobiles are anything in the world that moves that's not the player character. So that's going to cover everything from chickens and ducks and cows and fish and, monsters, spiders, skeletons, all of that kind of thing are mobs. If you leave mobs on, then those things will exist in the world and they will be roaming around and they have the potential to distract students. If you know you have students who will spend the entire class period chasing a duck across the prairie instead of working on what you asked them to create, then you should turn mobs off in your classroom. If you're teaching, again, economics, and you actually want your students to be able to go and corral a group of chickens together and then collect eggs from them because we're learning about an economy or something, then you may want to leave, or you will need to leave, mobs on. But mobiles are just up to your particular application. You can turn them off or on from here based on your classroom needs. Allow destructive items is something that, again, in a student classroom should probably be turned off most of the time. The tutorial introduces you to destructive items, so I'm going to leave them on here. But destructive items are specifically things like blocks of TNT. So just as a little anecdote, the first time I'm in a 7th grade classroom, I share student usernames and passwords with the students. They are immediately off to the races. They're building things and they're hopping into each other's worlds. And about 45 seconds, maybe a minute and a half later, I look over and one of the students has a pile of TNT that looks like it's part of the Manhattan Project, and it proceeds to blow a hole in the world that is the size of the crater in New Mexico. And so students will always do the unexpected, and if you give student boxes of TNT in Minecraft, they're going to blow things up with them. You probably don't want that to happen, particularly if they're in somebody else's world and they're blowing up what the other student is trying to create as part of their project. Again, destructive items have their place depending on what you're trying to teach in the classroom, but allow destructive items is something that I would probably start with off and then turn on if somebody asked me or if there was some appropriate application of destructive items for a lesson. Player damage. This player damage switch is slightly different from player versus player damage switch. So let me point out, player damage, again, is what I talked about earlier. If you fall off a high place, you will hurt yourself. If you fall into water and you spend too much time underwater, you will begin to take damage from drowning. If you jump into a lava pit, you will burn up from being exposed to the lava. And so if you want a world in which your students do not have to worry if they fall off the side of a mountain, or if they spend too much time underwater, or if they fall into a volcano, then you can turn player damage off. But it starts on, and because we're in the tutorial, I'm leaving it that way. Immutable world is what students should turn on after they're finished with a product, and they want to show it to other people by allowing other students into their world, or by sharing it with you and allowing you to roam around the world. Immutable world will keep anyone from building, either adding to or subtracting from that world once it's done being constructed. And so the switch needs to be off for as long as students are building a project, but it should be turned on when they are finished and they want to lock the world down, like putting a coat of shellac over something and just freezing it in place. Player versus player damage is exactly what it sounds like. So, fair warning, in Minecraft, and undoubtedly in the first time that you launch the game and allow students to play, they will create a world where survival is the mode, and in survival worlds, the default player versus player damage is on, and students will be running around in the Minecraft world, clubbing each other over the head, or building wooden and stone swords and hacking each other until they fall down. This is something that you should kind of expect for the very first day. I generally allow it the very beginning of our introduction to Minecraft because students are just super excited to be in an environment that they already know about. They're the expert here. The teacher rarely is. They're running around having a good time. They're chopping down each other's houses. They're sharing worlds with each other. And the first day that we do installation of Minecraft and students are kind of in different places as the installation process takes place, I don't necessarily consider that a 100% bad thing. I do want to advise my administrator that I'm going to be using Minecraft in the classroom, and this is the first day, and I'm intending to let the students kind of be excited about it and explore the world and run wild kind of for part of that first day, because you definitely do not want an administrator coming in to do an evaluation and finding your students zooming around the Minecraft world chopping on each other with swords, as if that's part of the lesson that you actually intend to deliver, because we all know that's not. That's just students being what students are, which is excitable and loving to be in an environment that they already know and know how to manipulate. And Minecraft is definitely going to be that for them. I'm going to leave the player versus player damage off here because that is where it is starting for the tutorial, and so I'm just going to leave it that way. And I'm going to scroll us back up to the top of the settings list and take us to what we should do right away. So when you originally come in and you click play and you pick tutorial world, you should just come right over here and click create like I'm going to do now. I'm going to click create. When I click create, it should begin the process of setting up the world for me. And it takes just a couple of minutes to do that for the first time. So I'm going to give it a couple of seconds here and we're going to see the tutorial world open up in Minecraft. The tutorial world is designed to give you an introduction, obviously, to how the game works. It's going to give you a chance to get used to moving around and how you look and manipulate your character in the game. And then it's going to give you a little maze to walk through and some different terrain to experience. We're going to go through all of that. And then eventually it will take you to the crafting table and show you how to collect resources and to combine those resources to create new items in the game world, which you can then use to modify your world. Minecraft is a sandbox game, which means you can create what you want to in the world, and it will persist after you save the world and come back to it later. So here we are in the Minecraft tutorial. You will want to acquire as many mice as you can. The mouse is the preferred way to interact with the game, so you should get in touch with your technician and try to make sure that you can get a mouse for every student that's going to be using Minecraft in the classroom on a laptop. And I can use my mouse to look around the world. I'm going to look around the world and down to where my feet would be, and over to my left and over to my right. And I can see right away that there's some signs here that give me some information. Welcome to Minecraft Education Edition, this one says. This tutorial will teach you controls, crafting, and basic interactions within the Minecraft world. Begin by pressing W to move forward. Now, if you look on the left-hand side of the screen, you're going to see some command reminders. WSAD, space, EC, and Shift. And so I'm going to do what they've suggested. I'm going to press W to move forward. And so I move my character forward and the perspective changes. This is a first-person perspective game. As a teacher, if you're not particularly familiar with this kind of world interaction, your students will be. I'm going to date myself by saying that I first experienced this kind of world setting in Wolfenstein 3D way back in 1989 or 90. And it takes a little while, I will say, to get used to using the W to move forward, S to move back, A to move left, and D to move right simultaneously with the mouse look features. So I can press W and move forward, and I'm going to move forward wherever I'm looking. And so, as you see, I kind of move around the world using just the W key if I want to. Now, if I want to slide left and right while looking forward, I can do that by using A for left and D for right. And I can move perfectly backwards by using the S button, right? Back me up. W button again moves me forward. The crosshair that we're looking at there right in the middle of the screen is like a place that you are going to push or touch or hit if you reach out with your character's hand. So you can see that little arm that's sticking out there on the right side of the little line of drumsticks there. When I click it, I seem to be swinging. That is exactly what I am doing. I'm swinging my arm and I'm hitting the spot that is represented by the X. So this one says right click me on this person over here. So I'm going to step up, and instead of left clicking, I'm going to right click. The right click takes me to a dialog box where this person can communicate with me. Right? So there's the basics for right-clicking to interact with non-player characters. Left-clicking is how you interact with the world around you, and I'm going to give you an example of that in just a minute. We're going to go ahead and move forward here, and it tells us need to move backwards. Use the S key, A, and D keys. Slide you to the left and the right. So our next task is just to kind of move through these blocks. Pressing W to move forward, and I can press A or S at the same time to move forward and slide left or right. Can I get through the maze? Try using the keys to make your way through to the end. So I can either use the W key and just move purely forward and point myself where I want to go, like I just did there, or I can move through by sliding left and right and backwards in order to get through the maze that way. Either way works just fine, and I think you'll find after time that a combination of moving forward by looking where you want to go and sliding left and right in order to manipulate your space in the room is how you will get comfortable moving around. I'll tell you that most people reach a kind of epiphany at some point in exploring the game, and they will have kind of an aha moment where suddenly they get how the mouse and keyboard work together. This person is telling me to right-click me too, so I will. And it tells me to open the door. I need to use the lever above the door, and I need to look directly at it and right-click with it, whether I'm using a button or a lever or whatever. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to put the X right on the lever, the cross, and then I'm going to right-click, and it's going to pull that switch down, and it's going to open this door here in front of me. And so I'm going to be able to step right up. I'll climb stairs automatically if the depth is 1. If the depth is 2 or more, then I've got to clear a space in order to be able to step up on top of that block. And I have to have a block above it cleared in order to have room for my whole body, because I'm actually 2 blocks high and 1 block wide. That's the size of your character. So it tells me here, Minecraft blocks can be destroyed by using a left click, aim at the block, and hold the button. So I'm going to aim at the block and hold the button. I see those cracks appear, and then the block breaks. And I can pick up the block by just stepping onto it. Here I need to actually clear out several blocks, and I can pick those up by just walking over them. Now I made a tunnel that I could walk through. It's one wide and two high, just like it needs to be for me to be able to get through. And I can step through and go on exploring the terrain. Now I'm going to leave off here because I've already gotten to the 30-minute and change mark, and I don't want to give you too much to watch or give away too much when you can enjoy exploring the world on your own. But you should come to the tutorial world, jump in, follow the directions, get used to the commands, make your way through the world to get a little farther than I am here, and they'll show you how to craft things and what a crafting bench is about, and just have some of the experience in Minecraft that your students are already going to have had, and that will be extremely useful to you the first time that you want to use it in the classroom. Also, at this point, let me encourage you to go back to the other video that introduces you to the Minecraft Education Edition website and to the teacher training that is available at that website. There is no more valuable training that you can get than that learn how to play training that you get from the education.minecraft.net website for teacher supports. The other video covers that, so I'll let you go over that information in that video. In the meantime, I would like to thank you very much for taking the time and taking a look at the tutorial world with me, as well as the installation process, and for taking the time and having been inspired to attempt to use Minecraft Education Edition in the classroom. I think you'll have a great time, and your students will absolutely love the opportunity to work in this setting. Again, my name is Hayden Schmidt. I'm an instructional technology specialist with Alvin ISD. If you need to get in touch with me, feel free to email me at hschmidt@theverypredictable.alvinisd.net or give me a call at my extension 2519. Although email is far and away the best way to get in touch with me. Thanks again for taking the time to watch, and have a great day.